Claude has just changed the way e-commerce companies will analyze their data. After spending 15 years inside of 9-figure e-commerce companies, I've seen exactly what their problem is. They do not understand data properly. And after Google Analytics migrated from Universal Analytics to GA4, the whole process became much more complicated. And over the years, I've debated with channel leads on what the data is saying, what the insights are, and who needs to do what next. And I've closed the gap on this. I've seen teams take days, if not weeks, to understand data, and I've bridged that gap using a very simple prompt and an AI automation workflow, which does it in 60 seconds. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can build the same. Now, firstly, let me tell you what e-commerce directors, heads of e-commerce, founders actually want. They don't want to be scrambling through analytics data, trying to make heads and tails of what it's actually saying. They want to know what the key actionable insights are. Now, this report here took me 60 seconds to put together. And don't get me wrong, it was done through a master prompt, and that prompt was actually put together using 15 years of experience. If you've not worked on the inside of these companies, you're not going to know what their exact processes are and what they're trying to achieve. Now, starting with the report, so this is the outcome. We've got the operator brief, and this was done on Google's merchandise store and Google's analytics store, and I set the period on it. Now, when you're pitching to e-commerce companies, so if you're trying to sell your services, your AI services to these companies, they always want to know what the executive summary is, i.e., how was the traffic performing over a certain period versus a previous period? Which channels performed better than others? Which products or categories performed better than others? And essentially what the data is saying. But one thing that they do not understand, where are we actually losing revenue? Or where is there a missed opportunity that we can tap into to recover revenue, which should be converted through traffic coming in? Because the default strategy for most e-commerce brands is we'll drive more traffic and we'll just convert at the existing conversion rate, and that will turn more revenue. But no, if you're paying for that traffic, especially if you do not own it, and when I say owned, email, you actually own the traffic. With paid traffic, be it through Google or through social channels, this is owned data. You don't actually own it, so you're paying for it. And if e-commerce brands have a lot of competition within their field, then unfortunately you're going to get into bidding wars and then pay more to acquire a customer. So for e-commerce brands, they need to know exactly what the data is saying and what the next actionable insights are. And in this report, I mean, all I did, this is just a test to show you how it works. And when you do go and sell these services to e-commerce companies, you can go more comprehensive or you can keep it as simple as you want, depending on what their requirements are. Now, I will show you some of the revenue leaks or the insights, so to speak. Now, firstly, the report picked up the mobile conversion rate, which was collapsing. Now, what it's essentially trying to say there is the desktop conversion rate was performing much better than mobile. So clearly there's work to do on the mobile journey. And as we know, on average within industry, 80% of users shop on mobile. However, ironically, desktop is performing much better when it comes to conversion. And in this particular scenario, the mobile experience was converting at 8% of what desktop was converting at. So stay with me here on the numbers. And what the report is showing here, that even if we improve the mobile experience somewhat, and even moved the 8% up to 25% conversion rate of the desktop conversion rate, then that would uncover an additional 55,000 or 56,000 close to in monthly revenue, which is an astronomical amount, considering that you do not have to pay a single penny more for any additional traffic. And then the report continues to give you actionable insights. And also for this particular insight, it assigns it to the CRO team, so conversion rate optimization. And it gives them actions on what they need to do in terms of how they can improve features or how they can even A/B test certain features to test a control versus a variant to make those optimizations. So we have the actionable insights here, and I won't go into all of them. This is just to show you what the report actually does. And this is enterprise grade. So you will not find this on Shopify stores. You'll find this type of stuff in corporate companies and enterprise companies. The second insight, moving on, refers to paid search revenue and the volume collapse. Now, paid has always been known to be the highest traffic driver because companies always resort to, we will pay, in order for us to drive more traffic, we will pay for more traffic. And in previous companies that I've worked for, amongst all the different channels, paid has usually, on average, accounted for around about 60% of the total volume of traffic. However, it's always underperformed at a massive rate. So we assigned this to the paid media team. It's a critical insight, meaning that it needs to be acted upon immediately. And here are the next best action steps that the paid media team need to take. Moving on to the next insight, which is the checkout payment step abandonment. And I actually cross-reference this with Google's online store because I used to conduct UX audits for large companies as well. And the data matches up and correlates to the T. And what this is actually saying is when users reach the checkout step, there's a heavy abandonment rate at that point. So this is something that can be optimized, and I know exactly what those optimizations are. And as it happened, the report produced the same actionable insights, which now the product owners or product managers that are responsible for that phase of the journey can now make any relevant changes. They can test different features that they have in order to make the checkout as frictionless as possible and recover a lot of that revenue. The next insight is referring to direct traffic, and this is assigned to the analytics and the marketing team. The status is high, so it's not critical as in it needs to be done today. However, it needs to be done within this week, so to speak. So what we first refer to is how direct traffic actually surged. And then it actually references a URL or a particular product which had more sessions than another one. However, it did not convert at the expected rate. So again, more actionable insights there. The next insight here was referring to unassigned traffic. So the attribution was not working. And when analytics data refers to attribution, it could be referencing something along the lines of a user may have been required through another channel. Let's take, for example, paid. Now, the user came onto the website, they bounced, and then they may have come back at a later point within a set period of time. However, that attribution was not given to paid, it was given to direct traffic, for example. So what this does is it gives teams the ability to understand how we can attribute data correctly so we understand our audiences better. And the last leak here, I only left 6 in this one deliberately just to keep the report as simple as possible, refers to the email channel. Now, email has always been the most efficient channel. However, in this case, it suffers from severe underinvestment, meaning that this particular company needs to invest more into email traffic because it's converting better than other channels. So again, we have the data, we have the numbers, we have the actionable insights, and now CRM teams can go away and optimize their part of the funnel to recover any lost revenue. And then the report gives a channel performance snapshot. And in this particular scenario, it's referring to direct and organic traffic because some of the other channels were referenced to in the insights themselves. So this is what the output looks like. Now, if you was to present this to an e-commerce company, they will immediately recognize the value in it, and they will know that their teams do not produce reports to this level of standard. And in fact, the reports in e-commerce corporate companies are there really just to showcase performance, to interpret what the data is saying on a high level, and to produce high quality PowerPoint presentations. We're not here for aesthetics, we're here to extract insights. Before I produced this report, I already understood the problem. However, I reached out to heads of e-commerce in various different companies to ask them, what is your biggest pain point? What is the biggest problem that you have? Not to my surprise at all, they all came back and said, we do not understand what our data is actually saying. We do not know where users are dropping off in the funnel, and we do not understand what the insights are. This report tells you exactly where users are dropping off in your funnel. It gives you your key actionable next steps, and it tells you who needs to do what next. And if you was to present this to an e-commerce founder or a head of e-commerce, they will want to know exactly how you've built it and how you can implement it within their company. Now let me show you how I did it. So all of this was done through a very simple N8N AI automation workflow. Now, I've seen many videos on AI automation workflows, and honestly speaking, a lot of them look extremely complicated. And I think what we need to do in this day and age is remove the complication, remove any overwhelm, and keep these as simple as possible. As you can see, it's just 4 simple steps. The client sends their data in, and this is just phase 1. I am going to build the agent version very soon as well. However, the client sends data in, and this can be done via a CSV file, or they can send their screenshots in of GA4 data, and we tell them exactly what to send in so they know which reports to click in and which periods to set the data limitations to. And then the second node moves on to the master analysis prompt. Now, if you've not worked inside of e-commerce companies, you're not going to know what they want. You're not going to know how their teams work, and you're not going to understand the organizational structures properly and how they assign tasks to various different teams so it all comes together at the end as one collective unit. Because essentially speaking, all e-commerce teams, as complicated as the org chart is, they're all working towards a common goal, which is to increase revenue and to increase conversion. So the master analysis prompt is within this node. I'll just double click into it. It's fairly lengthy and comprehensive to tell the system here what you need to do when that data comes in, how you need to cross-correlate various different analytical points, how you need to think. I've instructed the system here to think exactly how I used to think. And the reason I say this is because I worked as the head of e-commerce performance on a global scale for 40 different markets for a number of years. I know exactly what challenges and what bounce backs come from these various different stakeholders. I will share this in the community. And then once the prompt has read the data, has interpreted the data, then we move into the HTTP request. I'm not going to click into this because it has my API keys in here as well, but this essentially processes the previous two steps, which is to read the data, to apply the analytical mind and the skills to the data to then produce the output. So the email comes in via Gmail, and then an email response is sent back to the client via Gmail, and you could see this in here. So what I did in this particular test is I took these various different screenshots from GA4, and you do not need to take this many. The only reason I took this many screenshots is because I wanted to get very granular with the details. One thing, when you're presenting to heads of e-commerce, they're going to have a lot of questions for you, and if you're unable to answer those questions because you do not understand how data analytics works, unfortunately, they're going to lose trust in you. So what the system did was it automatically picked up these screenshots. Then the master analysis prompt got to work. We moved through the third node, which is the HTTP request, and then we sent the client report. Now I'm going to show you this in real time. So here's an email that I put together. It's still in draft, and what we will do, so we will just call this test, and we will send this email. Okay. Now this email has now come through, as you can see in my inbox, and we will kickstart the AI automation workflow. So now, as you can see, the screenshots have been picked up. The prompt is now working to analyze the data. It's correlating all of the different data points. It's looking at traffic, it's looking at customer journeys, it's looking at purchases, it's looking at all of the different GA4 data points that are now considered to be the most effective for companies to extract insights. And once the HTTP request has successfully been implemented, we will then see the report come through on the other end. And there you have it. The workflow has successfully completed, and now we will have a look inside our inbox, and it should send us the email. There we go. There's the email. So there's the initial screenshots that I sent, and here's the email. Here's the operator brief for Google's merchandise store. And again, executive summary, and we have all of the insights here for all of the teams that need to act as their next actionable steps. If you found this video was valuable, then do subscribe to the channel. Do leave a comment, and also if you want to know how you can build this workflow, and if you want to know what the exact prompt is and all of the obstacles that you need to overcome with the APIs, then do join the school community, and I'll drop the link below in the description.